the landmarks that we can use if we are to measure organs such as the liver or spleen. We make use the interspaces, mid-clavicular line, mid-axillary line, and so on. This is how we do it. On the upper figure shows your landmark, the right mid-clavicular line. You percuss downward along that line, starting from the fourth intercostal, then proceed down until you notice a change in percussion note, from the resonant lung to the dull liver. You have to mark the area of sound transition. At that same right mid-clavicular line, you change position. You go to the level of several centimeters below the umbilicus while threading the mid-clavicular line going up. You note for the tympani or resonance of the intestines until the dull sound of the lower border of the liver. You mark that area. Measure the distance of your first mark and the last mark, and that will correspond to your liver span. The manner of reporting will differ whether you measure it at mid-clavicular line or mid-sternal line. You have to state your area of measurement. Otherwise, you will be giving measurements subject to wrong interpretation by others. You are reporting your findings. But normally we use the mid-clavicular line. So the normal span of the liver is 6 to 12 in the mid-clavicular line and 4 to 8 cm at the mid-sternal line. The size of the liver differ according to the disease it harbors. You can have a small liver in cirrhosis, or big liver in fatty liver and other infiltrative diseases such as tumors. Another organ to evaluate is a spleen. To estimate its size, we have to use the left mid-axillary line. You do the same way as you check the liver, but this time the left mid-axillary line starting at the level of 8 interspace. Note for the change in sound from the resonant lung to dull spleen and mark the area. Without changing the position of your pleximeter finger, you proceed down to level of the 11th interspace and note again the change in the sound and mark the area. Normally, there will be no dullness, or if there is, it should be 1 interspace from the 9th to 11th intercostal space. More than this, if the size is beyond 11th interspace, it is called splenomegaly. They can be seen in cirrhotic patients wherein they can have increase in portal pressure from small liver. Also seen in hematologic diseases such as in leukemias. Percussion can also detect presence of fluid in the abdominal cavity. We can have two maneuvers, the shifting dullness or the fluid wave. Obviously, you have an intra-abdominal cavity fluid even by just inspection. To detect the presence of fluid, you have to use your two hands using fluid wave maneuver. The tapping hand on the other side and the receiving hand on the other side. Tap the other side while you perceive the wave traveling to the opposite side and felt by your other hand, the palmar side. It is likened to tapping a balloon filled with water and imagine the wave you feel with your other hand on the other side. If the patient is obese, sometimes you need an assistant or the patient itself. They must put their hand at the mid-abdomen between your hands and slightly press the abdomen using the fleshy portion of their hand as seen in the picture. This is done to dampen the wave of the abdominal fat on the obese patient. Shifting dullness. With patient in supine position, tap the abdomen at the level of umbilicus. In patients with ascites or fluid in the abdomen, the intestines because of the buoyancy of gas. When you tap, you will produce a tympanitic sound. Continue tapping with your pleximeter and flexor, going straight laterally, not going down towards your urinary bladder, but laterally to the flank area. Note for the change in sound from tympanitodal sound of the fluid, and then mark that area. Or you can map out the transition of sound in a linear manner until you can draw a line of demarcation. After marking the area, either few dots or a line, ask the patient change position on his or her side, not on the side you placed your mark. Wait for several minutes to allow the ascites to settle to position. Tap again the same way you did. You will notice the line you marked originally as the line of transition from tympanitodal will be no longer the same sound of transition. It shifted already. Shifting dullness is seen in ascites in patients with decompensated liver cirrhosis, intra-abdominal cancer, producing fluids, etc. And lastly, this maneuver is not to produce sound, but instead to check for tenderness in the costovertebral angle area. This area corresponds to the location of kidneys. Remember, you are eliciting discomfort or pain, and you have to be very careful, otherwise you're going to inflict severe pain on the patient. Rest gently the palmar side of your left hand as shown in the picture. Try to check if the patient already felt the pain. If not, with your other hand clenched, hit gently using the fleshy side of the clenched hand the posterior surface of your hand that is on the patient's costovertebral area, very gently. You proceed tapping it with few seconds of pauses in between to observe for the reaction of the patient. Gradual increases in intensity, positive if the patient felt the pain and you stop the test. If you proceed only if negative on the first test and stop if you have just given 2 or 3 taps strong enough to produce tenderness, but not too much to produce unnecessary or damaging pain on the patient. Tenderness is seen in patients with inflamed kidneys, as in infection or a condition we call pyelonephritis. This will be our last slide. I hope you gain more understanding in the abdominal examination in the area of percussion. Thank you.
Do you have any question regarding the lecture? Any question?
None po, Doc.
Okay, if there's none, remain logged in until 8 a.m. ano? I'm not sure kung meron pang magle-lecture na susunod. Just remain logged in until 8 a.m. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Doc.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Doc.
the abdomen of the patient. Okay, and the room should also be well lighted, and the patient should be comfortable lying on bed. Also, before we do anything, it's usually a nice practice to do a oral consent, no, informed consent. So we have to inform our patient what we're going to do to them and what they expect to happen. Okay, informed consent yan. Okay, so I'll be playing a pre-recorded lecture, a short one. Then after this, I'll give you some pointers, and if there's any question, I'll be glad to answer your questions. Okay, so let's start. Abdominal palpation. We do abdominal palpation to detect muscle guarding, detect abdominal masses, and to evaluate organs as to their size, shape, and consistency. The examiner would stand at the right side of a supine patient. He would ask the patient if there is any pain in any specific quadrant, as you would like to examine this painful quadrant last. He will warm both of his hands, put a pillow under the knee to help relax the abdomen. If a patient is ticklish, he can palpate over the patient's own hands. Palpation can be light or deep, single or bimanual. By drawing an imaginary line from the xiphoid down to the symphysis pubis and a horizontal line that crosses it through the umbilicus, you would have divided the abdomen into 4 quadrants, namely the right upper quadrant, the left upper quadrant, the right lower quadrant, and the left lower quadrant. You will all be expected to be familiar with all the organs that are found under each of these quadrants. You are supposed to carry out light palpation on all 4 quadrants using the ventral part of your fingers. You palpate in a circular motion by pushing no more than 1 cm deep, searching the skin and subcutaneous layer. You would also watch for the patient's face if he or she will grimace as a sign of pain. You will search every part of each quadrant. Do not forget to examine the umbilicus. The abdomen is normally soft, smooth with no rigidity. Therefore, in doing a light palpation, you will note for masses, tenderness, muscle guarding, and the presence or absence of voluntary or involuntary muscle guarding or rigidity. The patient has no control over this. It is due to the inflammation of an intestine or organ underneath. They may or may not be associated with peritonitis. A distended bowel due to obstruction may give you an involuntary muscle guarding, and this is a bad sign. For voluntary muscle guarding, it may be due to a cold examining hands, an anxious patient, a ticklish patient, a malingering patient. However, during early obstruction or an inflammation, the patient may actually be voluntarily guarding his muscle to protect himself from any additional pain or discomfort that may arise from your palpation. Tenderness is due to the inflammation of the intestine or organs underneath. A severe constipation wherein the stool would activate the stretch receptor would already cause enough pain or discomfort on the part of the patient. However, when you do a deep palpation, there will be an increase in the intra-abdominal pressure that may further aggravate the tenderness that the patient might feel, so one should be careful in doing it. A direct tenderness is a tenderness that is felt by the patient when you actually do the deep palpation, while a rebound tenderness is a tenderness that the patient will feel once the examiner abruptly removes his palpating hands. This is likewise known as the Bloomberg sign. Shown in this picture is a Sister Mary Joseph node that is hard and not reducible. It is due to an intra-abdominal primary cancer. Therefore, any bulging or masses that is seen in the umbilicus must be examined. Now we go to deep palpation. Just like light palpation, you would like to do deep palpation on all 4 quadrants, but this time around, you would push deeper and slide back and forth and to note for masses, tenderness, and organ borders. If a mass is identified, you should report the size, the shape, the consistency, whether it's tender or non-tender, if it's pulsatile or not, movable or fixed, and whether or not it is intraperitoneal or extraperitoneal. In doing so, you would ask the patient to tense his abdominal muscle by lifting his head above the examining table. In doing so, if the mass disappears, then it is highly that it is intraperitoneal. However, if the mass is still persistently present, then it is likely that it is extraperitoneal, like a lymphoma or a subcutaneous nodule. Last, you should also report the exact location of the mass where was identified. Palpation of the abdominal aorta. It should be done for all patients who are 50 years old and above. Normally, the abdominal aorta averages 2.5 centimeters but no more than 3 cm in size, and can feel the pulsation if the patient is not too obese. It is located just to the left of the midline in the left upper quadrant, as shown in this picture. While this picture demonstrates how we palpate for the abdominal aorta. Next, we go to the appendix. Appendix is a common cause of peritonitis if it ruptures. It results from an obstructed luminal ostium that leads to cut-off of the venous return. And then, due to edema and swelling, there will be a cut-off of the arterial flow, leading to ischemia and or necrosis. McBurney's point is a point of maximal tenderness in acute appendicitis. It is located 1/3 the distance from a line between the anterior superior iliac spine and the umbilicus. This is a picture that shows the appendix, the cecum, which is the first portion of the large intestine, and also the terminal ileum, which is the last portion of the small bowel. While this picture shows you where the McBurney's point is located, it is 2/3 the way from the umbilicus to the anterior superior iliac spine. If you highly suspect a patient to have appendicitis, you can do the Rovsing sign. This is done by doing a deep palpation on the left lower quadrant, and it will produce a pain on the right lower quadrant. Take note that the Rovsing sign is not a rebound tenderness. Next, we go to Murphy's sign, which is indicative of acute cholecystitis. When the tip of an examining finger touches an inflamed gallbladder during inspiration, it produces a deep pain that causes the breathing to stop at mid-inspiration. This is a positive Murphy's sign, which is highly indicative of an acute cholecystitis. I think that's the last slide. Stay home, as nobody is immune to coronavirus. Thank you. Class, you guys can hear me? Okay. So that was the short lecture that I prepared for you. Now, each of these slides, no, you have to memorize them by heart. Okay. Yung examination nyo, the exam will be multiple choice. It will be based on the slides and the lecture that's been given to you right now. And also the things that I'm gonna be adding. No? So, madali lang naman ang exam. So, basically, it's theoretical kung ano yung nasa slide, aralin nyo yan. Tapos, understanding, analysis, and basically some application on actual patient. Okay? So, for abdominal palpation, I expect the students to be familiar with the different organs that are found on each of those quadrants. Okay? So, ano yung mga organs nakikita sa right upper, sa left upper, sa right lower, and the left lower. The reason behind that is that most of the time, the organ of interest or yung organ na may problema is immediately underneath the quadrant that is of concern. For example, meron kang pain sa right upper quadrant. Most probably, the organ that is responsible for that is those that are found immediately in the right upper quadrant. That's why kailangan medyo familiar kayo sa mga organ para medyo man-narrow down nyo ang differential diagnosis nyo. Okay? But not always, because sometimes you can have some referred pain. Referred pains basically means that there might be a pain somewhere in the other quadrant, tas nare-refer, nandun yung problema, pero nare-refer siya somewhere else, no? Like one good very example is yung kanina sa lecture, yung Rov Sims, no? No, nung pinapress mo yung isang lugar, may pain ka dun sa kabilang lugar. Okay? Clear? So you should be familiar with some of the common diseases that are encountered in the clinics, no? So what is the palpation finding of acid peptic disease or gastric ulcer? Okay, so for you to know that, we should be familiar with the anatomic location of the stomach, no? So when the esophagus enter the crus of the diaphragm, which is the opening in the diaphragm, okay, para pumunta sa abdominal cavity, it turns a little bit to the left side, okay? Then para siyang letter J ang shape niyan, no? So it occupies more on the left upper quadrant. Okay, so the dome, the cardia of the stomach, the dome, the proximal body of the stomach, it is basically on the left upper quadrant. Then it will go through the epigastric area, so yung bandang antrum of the stomach and the pylorus of the stomach, mandang nasa gitna na siya, nasa epigastric area o doon sa may linea alba, okay, going towards to the right upper quadrant. Okay, so depende kung anong part of the stomach ang involved, sometimes you can locate, no, it through the PE finding, palpation finding that you'll be able to elicit. Halimbawa, meron kang nakita isang mass, palpable mass in the left upper quadrant. Okay, so anong mga possible organs, no, that give rise to mass in the left upper quadrant? Now, if you review the anatomy, halos wala tayong solid organs sa left upper quadrant because your left lobe of the liver does not extend to the pinaka-extreme lateral border of your ribs. It doesn't extend. It only extends around to the left mid-clavicular line, yung plane na yun. Halos nandyan lang yung left lobe of your liver. Hindi siya umaabot doon sa dulong-dulo. So, at saka left lobe of the liver is significantly smaller than the right lobe of the liver. So, usually you will not be able to palpate that on the left upper quadrant. Now, the other organs in the left upper quadrant, of course, would be occupied by the dome of the stomach. Ang dome of the stomach is a hollow viscous. No? So, pag walang laman, empty yan, collapse yan. So, you're not supposed to palpate any hard objects or organs on the left upper quadrant. With regards to the spleen, it's quite small. Normally, you won't be able to easily palpate that, okay, unless na may pathology siya, na may splenomegaly, then mapapalpate mo yan. Otherwise, hindi naman. Now, for the kidney, no, kidney is a retroperitoneal organ. So, again, hindi ganun kadali mo mapapalpate ang kidney unless you do the palpation specifically for the kidney. No, may maneuver dyan. You can read that in the De Gowen or Bates. Okay. So in other words, another organ that is found in the left upper quadrant is your distal transverse colon. So kung mapapansin mo, halos lahat ng na papalpate o is located left upper quadrant are mga bituka. There are no solid organs. So you're not supposed to palpate any hard organs in that area. So kung sakaling meron tayong na palpate na mass in the left upper quadrant,
automatically isipin mo, ano yung mga organs underneath. Okay, so I mentioned to you, number one, it could be your stomach. Okay, but stomach is supposed to be not palpable. So kung meron kang mass doon at iniisip mo stomach, then you will have to describe what is the character and the size of the mass that you're able to palpate. Okay, masses that are hard, matigas siya, masses that are fixed, that are not movable, that are not tender, no? Kahit piga-pigain mo siya, hindi sila nasasaktan, no? These are usually suggestive of malignancy. Okay? Versus mass that are soft or cystic in consistency, that are movable and tender. This will usually suggest inflammatory process that gives rise to the mass. Clear? Yung binanggit ko sa inyo ngayon, those characteristics are true to any masses in the abdomen, not only to the gastric mass. Kahit saan po basta mass in the abdomen. Clear? Thumbs up? Okay. Either you do a thumbs up class or you do nothing so that I'll know that you're able to hear me, okay? So that's for the left upper quadrant. Now, another possibility of a mass in the left upper quadrant, of course, is the spleen. As I mentioned to you a while ago, spleen is very small and usually hindi niyo mapapalpate yan, no? Ngayon, paano mo malalaman kung ang mass is spleen at hindi gastric malignancy? Okay? Well, the spleen is a bean shape. No? Bean shape yan. Parang kidney yan. Parang munggo. If you've seen a munggo, kinakain natin munggo. Okay? So yung munggo na yan, isipin mo, lumaki ng lumaki yan. No? So it enlarges into a huge size. Okay? So what is very characteristic of the spleen is that it has a splenic notch. Alam mo splenic notch? Pag nakakita ka ng munggo, di ba, parang bean shape siya, yung nasa may concave area. No? Yung isa, di ba, convex, yung isa concave. Yung isa may concave area, may isang notch yan. So if you're able to palpate for the splenic notch, okay, very suggestive and pathognomonic that the mass is due to an enlarged spleen. Okay? Pero kung wala ka nakapang splenic notch at hindi naman siya bean shape, okay, probably baka hindi. Diba? So you have to think of other possibilities. Okay? So pwede siyang gastric mass, or another possibility is baka pwede naman siya may liver mass. Okay? Yung left lobe of the liver mo, lumaki dahil may bukol eh. So, madali mong ma-differentiate ang liver because the liver is, as I've told you, more on the medial side. Hindi naman siya umaabot sa beyond the left lateral clavicular line, left mid-clavicular. Hira sila nag-extend beyond that. Pangalawa, ma-contour yung pinaka-shape ng liver, mapapalpate mo. No? Parang pahaba siya. Tapos mapapalpate mo yung surface of the liver. Okay? Definitely hindi siya bean shape. Okay? And same rule apply, no? If it's hard and it's fixed and it's non-tender, tudat tayo na malignancy yan. Okay? Pero kung cystic siya, tender siya, movable siya, most probably it's just inflammatory. Okay? Clear? Okay, so next. No, the other organs that is also very common, no, or a disease that is also very common would be acute cholecystitis, no? Ang acute cholecystitis, saan ba siya nakalagay? Saan ba nakalagay o situated ang gallbladder? It's located in the gallbladder fossa. So where's the gallbladder fossa? It's on the inferior border of the right lobe of your liver. Inferior border, ibig sabihin, nasa ilalim. So parang nakatago yan. So, hindi mo ganun kadali mapalpit ang gallbladder. Mapapalpit mo muna ang liver. Kasi yan yung nasa harap mo eh. No? Immediately underneath the ribs, yan yung gallbladder. Yan yung liver. But the gallbladder is hidden on the inferior side of your liver. So that if you want to palpate for the gallbladder, you have to do the maneuver that is in the lecture, no? So you have to trust your examining hand your palpating hand underneath the ribs. Okay? But before you do so, dapat sabay, dapat simultaneous. You ask the patient to inhale. While inhaling, then you simultaneously thrust your palpating finger underneath the ribs. Kumbaga, sisingit mo sa ilalim ng mga ribs mo. Because when you do an inhalation, the vertical diameter of your lungs will increase. So pag nag-increase yung vertical diameter ng lungs nyo, it will push your diaphragm and your liver downwards towards your examining hand. Since ang gallbladder is in the gallbladder fossa, and since ang gallbladder fossa is in the inferior border of the liver, so pagbaba ng liver, tatama yan dun sa tip of your palpating hand. Now, if your gallbladder is normal, well, no harm that. Walang pain, no tenderness, no nothing, no. But if you have an inflamed gallbladder, once it touches the once your palpating hand or fingers touches the inflamed gallbladder, it will incite a severe pain, okay, during mid-inspiration. So, titigil ang paghinga ng pasyente. And that's the Murphy sign that was discussed dun sa lecture a while ago. Okay? Now, for the gallbladder, an inflamed gallbladder is cholecystitis. Lahat ng sa medicine, lahat ng maririnig nyo na may suffix na itis, ibig sabihin namamaga. So, hindi lang sa gallbladder, kahit saan. So, diverticulitis, okay, peritonitis. Basta may itis, ibig sabihin, namamaga sila, inflamed. Okay, clear? Now, if you have a stone in your gallbladder, it's cholecystolithiasis. If you have a stone naman in the ducts, no, yung mga biliary ducts, it's called choledocholithiasis. Now, a patient can have a gallstone, that means cholecystolithiasis, pero hindi namamaga. So, what does that mean? Meron siyang gallstone, cholecystolithiasis, but because hindi namamaga o hindi inflamed ang gallbladder, you will have no Murphy sign. There will be no tenderness on your palpation. Okay? It's only those patients with inflamed gallbladder na magpa-positive ang Murphy sign. Clear? Okay? So, wag porket ang data na binigay sa'yo may cholelithiasis or may choledocholithiasis, automatic mag-expect kayo positive ang Murphy's. No, it won't. Positive Murphy's will only happen pag inflame ang gallbladder mo. Okay? And your gallbladder can be inflamed with or without a stone. If it gets inflamed with a stone, then that is what? Calculus cholecystitis. But if your gallbladder would be inflamed without a stone, you call them acalculus. Acalculus, ibig sabihin walang stone. Dagdag ka lang ng isang A dun sa harapan. Clear? Okay. So, yun. Now, whether it be in cholecystitis, no, pag simple cholecystitis lang siya, then you'll be able to elicit direct tenderness, no, during deep palpation, of course, in the right upper quadrant. Specific maneuver is the positive Murphy sign. Okay? Then you will not have a rebound tenderness. You will only have a rebound tenderness, no, kung may peritoneal irritation. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pag diniin mo yung palpating hand mo doon sa right upper quadrant, nag-positive Murphy's ka, that's on deep palpation. Pero once ni-release mo siya, the pain disappears. There's no rebound tenderness. A rebound tenderness kasi is pag after deep palpation, you suddenly remove your palpating hand, biglang parang masasaktan yung pasyente. Actually, mas matindi ang pain na mararamdaman ng pasyente. Pero biglaan. Kasi bigla tanggal mo eh. So, pag nag-bounce off yung abdomen mo doon sa pag-release ng palpating hand mo, biglang parang nasundot siya, parang nasaktan siya, parang magugulat. That's a rebound tenderness. Okay? Now, rebound tenderness will only happen if there's a peritoneal irritation or inflammation. So, kung ang gallbladder mo medyo nabubulok na siya, no? Or nagsisipage na siya, nagli-leak na siya, okay? Then you will have peritoneal irritation. Then that's the time that you're going to have a rebound tenderness, okay? So what do you call yung gallbladder parang nabubulok. Nabubulok, Tagalog eh. Ang English, nagiging gangrenous na siya. Okay? Gangrenous. Yung gangrene parang sa paa. No, yung mga diabetic patient, pag infected, nagagangrene siya, parang nangingitim. So, there's also such thing as a gangrenous gallbladder. Usually, these are common in compromised patients like diabetes, no? Tapos nagkakaroon sila ng cholecystitis, yun, nagiging gangrene ang kanilang gallbladder. Okay? Or sometimes masyadong matagal na may cholecystitis, matigas ang ulo ng pasyente, ayaw magpa-opera, ayaw magpapunta ng ospital, walang pake. Siyempre, nagde-deteriorate yung kanyang gallbladder. So, pwedeng kumbaga lumalala. So, pwede magkaroon ng konting pericholecystic fluid collection. Yun ang makikita nyo sa mga ultrasound finding nakalagay. Pericholecystic fluid collection. Ibig sabihin, yung surrounding the gallbladder, nagkakaroon ng parang kumakatas. No? Parang So, those are signs na infected yung gallbladder mo or inflame ang gallbladder mo. In such cases like that, you might have a rebound tenderness. So my point here is that not all cholecystitis will have a rebound tenderness. Most of them will have a direct tenderness. So yung rebound tenderness depende kung gaano kagrabe. Clear? So after that, next of course, hindi tayo pwedeng matapos ang klase natin na hindi natin i-discuss ang acute appendicitis. The bread and butter of the surgeons. Okay? Very common yan, acute appendicitis. Unless that you are born abnormal, no? Your appendix is supposed to be on the right side. Okay? Do you know the condition wherein baliktad ang internal organs mo? What do you call that? Situs inversus, right? So, pag may situs inversus ka, baliktad yan. Yung appendix mo nasa left side. Okay, so paano mo malalaman yan? Well, you never know unless that patient is yours or na-examine mo siya. You'll never know. Okay, can you know whether the patient is situs inversus just by doing an abdominal palpation? No, hindi mo malalaman yun. So, if you have an ultrasound before, malalaman mo. Kasi makita mo, baliktad lahat eh. Yung liver niya, yung pinakabatang liver niya nasa left side. No? So, baliktad siya. Now, and that is if the patient is aware. Now, and the patient will voluntarily tell you that. Or maybe matagal mo na siyang pasyente, na-handle mo na siya, meron kang medical record, malalaman mo may situs inversus siya. Okay? Now, another clue there is that if you do a chest x-ray, no? Kasi pag nag-situs inversus siya, most probably, yung kanyang chest x-ray, yung heart shadow niya, nasa bandang kanan naman. Baliktad sa kabila. Okay? But we'll never know, no? Kung just on palpation PE, we'll never know kung ano. So, you have to dig in your history, no? Okay? Pero bihira naman nangyayari yung situs inversus. I've, in my entire practice, naka-encounter ako isang beses lang, no? Na may situs inversus yung pasyente. So, we were also excited. Pinagkakagulo namin yung pasyente. Pero wala naman. Really no big deal. Their abdomen still look the same. Kasi unless nandun ka sa loob. Pero pag nasa labas ka, parehas din naman. Yung umbilicus, kahit balik-balik na rin mo, nasa gitna rin naman yan eh. So, no big deal. Hindi naman siya mapupunta sa dorsal aspect, yung nasa likod sa spine. Hindi naman mapupunta din yung umbilicus. No? So, they still look the same. Okay? So, for the appendix, okay, again, just like cholecystitis, you expect a tenderness where? In your right lower quadrant. Kasi nandyan yung appendix mo, di ba? As shown dun sa slides, no? It's in the right lower quadrant. Ngayon, again, just like cholecystitis, direct tenderness lang tayo. Unless na may seepage, unless na nag-gangrenous siya, unless nag-twisted, kumbaga nagkakaroon na ng complication, things like that, then you may have a rebound tenderness. Okay? Rebound tenderness is when you suddenly remove your examining or palpating hand, you remove it suddenly, okay? Biglang may pain. To elicit rebound tenderness, you have to remove your hands abruptly. Hindi pwede dahan-dahan. Kasi pag dinahan-dahan mo pag-remove, ay hindi ka makaka-elicit ng rebound tenderness. It has to be removed abruptly. Biglaan mo itatanggal yung kamay mo. Okay? So, again, one of the complications of an acute appendicitis is that pag inflamed yan, our body is equipped with defense mechanism to ensure our survival. No? So, lalo na katulad kayo, ang babata pa nyo, no? Ang lalakas pa ng immune system nyo. Once inflamed ang appendix nyo at medyo nagkakata siya o nagka-gangrene siya o naglilik na siya, your omentum, the omentum inside your abdomen will automatically seal it off. Seal it off, ibig sabihin ikukordon niya para hindi na kumalat yung infection. But in doing so, in-isolate mo yung lugar na yan, pwedeng mag-ipon ang mga infection doon. So, pag nag-ipon ang infection doon, anong mangyari? Pwede kayo magkaroon ng pus collection. Nana, no? Sa Tagalog, pus collection doon sa lugar na yan. And that's where you will develop your phlegmon mass. Phlegmon mass, okay? So, yun. Again, it's in the right lower quadrant. Okay? So, anything else? After that naman, we need also to yung pancreatitis. Pancreas, no? Because these are the common organs. So, meron tayong gallbladder, may appendix tayo, may spleen tayo. Now, we have to cover the pancreas. Pancreatitis. Pancreas, yung head of the pancreas is located in the second portion of your duodenum. The second portion of the duodenum is a C shape, parang letter C. Kung ito yung C, ito yung ulo ng pancreas, nakaganit yan. Kumbaga, nakaikot, no? Okay? Nakahug yung C shape of your duodenum dun sa head of your pancreas. And the head of your pancreas is the only portion of your pancreas that is not retroperitoneal. Because beyond the head of the pancreas, mid-body of the pancreas up to the tail, they are all retroperitoneal. Ibig sabihin, nasa likod sila, nasa likod ng peritoneum. Okay? The relevance of this kasi is, if you read the natural history and the clinical manifestation of acute pancreatitis, you'll notice that the steady, boring pain of the acute pancreatitis is more intense if the patient is in supine position. Okay, pag nakahiga, nakatihaya, mas matindi ang pain. Ngayon, pag pinaupo mo sila o pina-lean forward mo sila, alam mo lean forward, parang naka-stood na gano'n, naka-lean forward, parang madadapa, you lean forward like this. The pain is somehow relieved o nabawasan. Maybe not totally nawala, pero significantly nabawasan. In fact, you do not have to tell the patient to do that because before they go to you, sa sobrang sakit ng acute pancreatitis, lahat ng posisyon na nasubukan na nila. In fact, sometimes they will even be the one to tell you that, Doc, mas komportable ako pag nakaupo ako kaysa nakahiga. No? So, you'll be able to see na mas madalas nakaupo sila, kahit natutulog sila, nakaupo sila. Kasi nga, wala namang may gusto na sasaktan, di ba? So, that's a normal maneuver that a patient would do. Okay, so, why is it so? Na ganon. So, yun na yung reason, yung sinabi ko sa inyo. Because the head of the pancreas is the only portion of the pancreas that is in the anterior. All the rest is retroperitoneal. So, pag retroperitoneal yan, nasa likod, tapos namamaga siya, tapos pahigain mo yung pasyente. So, can you imagine anong nangyayari? All the organs that is in the anterior o doon sa harap will be on top of your inflamed pancreas. Ay, siyempre masakit, parang nadadaganan siya, di ba? So, pag nakaupo yan, naleless yung pressure na nakadagan doon sa pancreas. Pag nag-lean forward siya, gano'n, lalo na. Di ba? Okay, so sometimes that's how you study, no? You try to read and you try to analyze and try to put things together because that way, it helps you remember them. Kaysa yung memorize tayo ng memorize, di ba, na hindi naman natin alam kung anong ibig sabihin. Ang hirap, you just rely plainly on memory. No? But believe me, at your stage right now, most of the things that you study will just be plain memorization. Mahirap pa nyo kasi maiano dahil wala pa kayong exposure masyado sa clinics, no, sa actual. But as you go along, you'll get used to it and eventually maiintindihan nyo bakit pala ganon. Okay, basta ngayon, just trust the process. Aral lang ng aral, memorize ng memorize. Kahit hindi nyo memorize. Yung importante, may isaulo nyo at ipasa yan. At saka na nyo problemahin yung iba. Okay? So what else? Okay. when you're able to palpate a mass, no, like in the lecture I told you a while ago, kailangan nyo i-describe yung mass as to size, shape, consistency, tender, non-tender, movable, not movable, and also kung nasa anong quadrant siya. You have to be very specific with that. Okay? So, I think that's about it. Those are the common. Okay, by the way, be familiar with the McBurney's point. Okay? Yung McBurney's point is in the lecture. Okay? Because that's a very important landmark for the acute appendicitis. Tapos, okay, isa pa pala before I forget. If a organ, okay, or part of your intestine is inflamed, pero hindi pa siya ruptured, hindi pa pumuputok, okay, usually the pain is sharp, and it's the patient will be able to, even with one finger, he or she will be able to point to you saan yung point of maximal tenderness, yung pinakamasakit. Okay? So, kunyari, appendicitis, tuturo niya sa'yo, more or less dun sa McBurney's point. Okay? Kung acid peptic disease siya or gastric ulcer siya, pero walang malignancy, tuturo niya sa'yo epigastric area. Okay? You're all familiar with epigastric, right? Kasi epigastric is dun sa 9 quadrant. If you divide the abdomen to 9 quadrant, it's not shown in the, I think it's shown in one of those slides that I have, yung palpating for the aorta. I think meron dun yung isang tao dun na may epigastric is yung nasa sigmura, yung nasa gitna. Okay? Wala siya kasi dun sa 4 quadrants eh. Kasi dito tayo sa FUT, we're teaching our student using the 4 quadrants. So, hindi napakita yung epigastric. But you should know the epigastric and the hypogastric. Those are the two portion of the 9 quadrants abdomen that is commonly encountered. So, epigastric is yung sa taas ng umbilicus mo. Yung nasa ilalim ng sternum. More or less doon. Yung hypogastric, yan yung sa ilalim. Sorry, ang epigastric is sa taas ng umbilicus. Yung sa may sternal area. Yung hypogastric, yan yung nasa ilalim. Yung puson. Kumbaga, kayo mga babae, pag nagdidysmenorrhea kayo, ayun, sa hypogastric area ang pain nyo. Okay? So, going back. So, kung inflamed lang isang organ, okay, at hindi pa siya nagra-rupture, hindi pa nag-gangrene, hindi pa siya nagkaka-seepage, things like that, okay, your pain is very localized. Talagang, even with one finger, they will be able to really point kung saan yung tenderness. Okay? But, if, for example, appendicitis is nag-rupture na siya, okay, pumutok na, okay, o nag-leak na siya, okay, yung acuteness o yung pagka-localized ng pain, okay, nagiging vague, no? Ibig sabihin, hindi na siya ganun kadaling ma-identify. In fact, most of my patient na na-encounter ko na nagkaroon ng rupture na, they will describe na nag-improve ang kirot, nabawasan. Okay? But, kahit nabawasan siya, naging mas malawak. It becomes broader. Kasi kung hindi pa siya pumutok, magzi-zero in sa'yo with one figure. Dok, dito po. In fact, sila sarili na pinapalpit nila right or quadrant. Itong lugar na pinakamasakit. They will be able to identify that. So with you, if you do the abdominal palpation. But once it ruptures, they will tell you more or less history with na yung point of maximal tenderness dito, parang nabawasan. Parang naginhawaan sila. Okay? But when you do an abdominal PE, mapapansin mo, mas broader yung area ng tenderness. So, pwede na siyang umabot dito sa hypogastric area, pwede na siyang minsan umabot dito sa left lower quadrant, ang tenderness. Pero, hindi ganun ka-sharp. Parang naging vague siya. Okay? I'm just emphasizing that kasi so that you will not have a false sense of security na, oy, nag-improve pala siya kasi nabawasan yung pain. Why do I do that? Because most of my patients, they do not feel the urgency na delikado yan. When in fact, as a medical doctor, you know that's more dangerous kasi fecal material yan eh. No? So, contaminated yung peritoneum niya dyan. Okay? So why are they still okay? Well, because they're like you, bata pa po sila. So malakas pang resistensya nila. At pangalawa, nag-seal off yung omentum nila. But you know, pag tumagal yan, hindi pa rin uubra dyan. Okay? So still, the patient needs surgery. So I'm telling you that so that you'll not have a false sense of security and sending the patient home, but rather explain to the patient the more that you need to bilisan na pa-opera. Otherwise, baka magkaroon ng much worse complication afterwards. Okay? So, bakit siya nagkakaganon? Parang nag-vague, lumalawak. Yung typical textbook description ng board-like rigidity. Yun. Kasi lumalawak siya no? So, parang parang tumitigas. Okay? With regards to the board-like rigidity, do not expect parang tabla. Alam mo tabla? Kahoy. Hindi ganon. Pag kinakatok mo, yung lamesa, hindi ganon ang tunog. Kasi hindi porket board ganon. Like yung blackboard mo, kinakatok mo, hindi ganon. When I was still a student, I thought that was the case. Kasi board So, I took the word literally, board. So, nung meron akong acute abdomen, hinahanap yung board-like rigidity. Wala namang ganun. Hindi naman tumutunog na ganun. Hindi rin naman ganun katigas din. No? Pero, ang board-like rigidity is just like a tense abdomen. Alam mo, kahit kayo, kaya niyong gawin. Kunyari, try nyo mag-sit up. Gusto nyo magpa-sexy yung mga bilbil nyo para mawala. Try nyo mag-sit up. Pag nag-sit up kayo, tinetense nyo yung rectus abdominis nyo. Right? Which is the abdominal muscle. Parang titigas siya. Diba? Parang ganun lang siya. Kaso, ano siya, involuntary. So, ibig sabihin, hindi mo kayang i-control. Because of the peritoneal irritation, nag-board-like rigidity, laging nakatense lang yung abdomen mo dyan. Hindi mo kayang i-relax yan. Okay? Matigas siya. Pag hinawak mo, matigas siya. Okay? Parang yung, alam mo yung mga bodybuilder na may 6 na packs na pandesal sa tiyan nila. Yung ganun katigas. Yun. Okay? Pero masakit. Pag dinidiin mo, medyo masakit sila. Okay? Pero consistent sila, board-like rigidity. Okay? So, I think that's about it. So, again, your examination will be based on the lecture that you just heard a while ago, the short one. The theoretical aspects. So, be familiar with those quadrants. How are they being divided? And also, how do you do the Murphys and those stuff nandun sa lecture, and how you do the abdominal aorta examination. It's mandatory for patients who are elderly, mga 50 and above. And of course, itong mga binigay ko sa inyong pointer, mga common diseases, no? Anong palpation findings nila. And also, ano yung mga organs that are found in each of those quadrants. Okay? Pero mag-emphasize kayo dito sa mga binanggit ko sa inyo mga diseases. Kasi yan yung mga common. I won't be asking you diseases that are not common. But it doesn't mean that you do not have to study them. You have to study them for the board exam. Pero bahala na mga board examiner sa inyo dun sa mga rare. Sa akin, I'm just concerned sa more common ones. Okay? Because of limited time. Okay? So, kasi yung mga common yan, yung madalas nyo ma-encounter sa clinic. So, yun. Okay? So, multiple choice, choose the best answer. Some of them is analysis, common sense, and application. Okay, any question from the class? None? Okay, so I hope you did learn something today. In my own little way, I have contributed to the greatest doctor of the future. No? Maybe one of you. Okay, so if there's no question, I'll be dismissing you, and good luck. Sana pumasa po kayo lahat. Okay? Bye, class.
Thank you po, Doc.
Sige po, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.